today's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Jeff Lezinski, SVP and Solution Architect for Odessa. Thanks for joining me, Jeff.
Hey, Jesse, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to the conversation.
No, absolutely, man. And it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, it's just Odessa now. It's not Odessa Technologies. So make sure I didn't mess that up. So.
Thank you. Yeah, the rebranding effort that has been ongoing. So thanks for that.
No problem whatsoever. So, Jeff, for the people who might not be familiar with you, I've had the luxury of working with you, I think, since I started in equipment finance at OSG in 2005. Do you mind just giving kind of a background of yourself and your career to date? I think it's all been at one organization,
yeah.
But jump right in, man.
Absolutely. So it's unlike many others in my tenure in career. I've had two jobs. So I actually started my career out in consulting with PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was part of the litigation consulting group. Did a lot of expert analysis from an economic standpoint in the pharmaceutical industry with all the bad stuff that was going on. So right out of school, I took that job way back, dating myself to 2000. And I worked for about 4 years in consulting and had an opportunity at that point to jump ship into something that was, just completely different, an organization that's massive as PwC, and to go to a small company that I had some connections with some of the folks that were already there. They had gone to school with me, a really small school, Haverford College, and after about a year of prying, they convinced me to join them, and I jumped ship across the courtyard. So their office was right across a courtyard on the same street in Center City, Philadelphia. So ran into some folks from PwC when I joined Odessa. So I had no, like a lot of people who enter the industry, I had no specific training in leasing per se. Specifically, actually no real specific training in technology. I delved a bit into accounting while I was at PwC. So there was some cross work going on with consulting and their audit unit. So if we were available, hey, you're going to be charged. You could work on an audit down in Wilmington for a little bit. So wasn't an accountant by trade, but you pick up some stuff on the job as well. But then I joined Odessa, and Odessa was a software company in leasing, and I was like, oh, leasing, okay, leasing cars, right? And that's what everybody thinks is. I've heard of leasing cars. I've never leased a car, and it was actually a lot different from that when I posed the questions. Like, yeah, we can do leasing of cars in the system and the origination of the deal and the servicing of the deal, but this is more commercial equipment. And we target at the point it was targeting U.S. and Canadian-based organizations, and I didn't realize that wine barrels could be leased and that they were an asset in the system. And I just got into leasing, obviously through the Odessa connection, and started. So I actually started on the help desk at Odessa, and I had to pick up the system. And I learned a lot by reading the handbook of equipment leasing by the author Sudhir Membaugh. He's a stalwart in the industry. He's been around the industry a long time. So while I was trying to learn the system, I was reading up, and there was actually literature around what this equipment leasing was, how to price a deal, what are the tax ramifications, what are the accounting, the finance, the operational challenges, what does risk mean, and why is credit so important in leasing. And I learned a lot, and then I kept getting more literature. There's papers out there, and we're in the internet age back then, where you can start Googling things, and you just find stuff to learn about the industry. And as I grew in Odessa, so started help desk, I was put on implementations. I started doing some design work as a business analyst. Started doing some project management for implementations, specifically here in the U.S. But that quickly expanded as we grew quickly to other opportunities globally, whether it be in Canada, South Africa, the APJ region, and eventually Europe. And my role shifted from delivery or implementation and getting one client live and configuring the system for them to going to more of a product-based role, right? So I was getting exposure to the market at that point. So I was doing some sales support and demonstrations. I was working with the product team to prioritize roadmap and do designs for things that the market is saying that they need. So, and then I got involved, in the industry early on. As you said, we met when you were at OSG back in 2005. So it's about a year in, and I remember attending our first conferences and the like as a young growing company and making connections with folks. Eventually was put on and got selected for a committee. I'm currently on the ELFA Finance and Accounting Committee. I've been on about, I think it's 6 years now. And you learn a lot from folks that have a long time in the industry, and you just get great perspectives from our customer base, who is the people actually doing the financial services. But I bring that kind of technology experience to that, along with the accounting and the finance. So it's been a great run. And I think, like a lot of people say, once you're in, you're kind of in. You hit a point, and you're not going to leave the industry.
No.
So I don't know when I hit that point, but once you get that expertise, it's like I can't picture myself doing anything else but working in equipment finance, auto finance, asset finance. It's just it's embedded now in what I do.
No, and good for you as far as being in the industry with one organization. I kind of hit that wall a little bit with two previous ones where it's like, I want to stay in here, but I think I need to do something else.
It's interesting. I think about it, and I've had conversations with folks that say, wow, you've been at that company, a long time, but, you hit a certain point, I think just from an age standpoint, that it is a little more difficult maybe to leave jobs, and you're of more value to an organization specific that you've been with for a long time, maybe, than of value to another organization that might be like a competitor in the same space. And when you like what you do, you tend to stick around and not look for other opportunities. And the real thing for me is I've got a challenge every day, and that's what I like, and what keeps me going is there's learning, and there's things that I have to solve every day, and I couldn't do the same stuff daily. It's just it's not a 9-to-5 job for me.
Well, absolutely. And plus the relationship that you have with Mondo and growing that organization to where it's at today, having the actual input on roadmap and everything else. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, it's great to go from an organization that has thousands and thousands, right, at PwC, where you're a little fish in the ocean. You can grow as a fish, and you can become a snapper, and then a shark, and maybe a whale. It takes time, but there's a lot more whales in the ocean. And now, when I joined Odessa back in 2004, it was, hey, the decisions or the opinions that I had actually impacted the organization, and I was making a difference. And to this day, I still make a difference. And I've got the trust of senior management and the like. And it's very rewarding to go from a big organization to a small one that you can have an impact on. That's I 100% agree, Jeff. So let's just talk Odessa, if you don't mind, just
sure.
For the people who might not know who Odessa is, just a little background.
Yeah, absolutely. So Odessa's been around 23 years. So 1998, Madhu and Jay, you mentioned Madhu Natarajan and Jay Mehra are the co-founders. Madhu started it in his dorm room. He actually worked previously at a servicing company for leasing companies, and was using a system, and realized that that system wasn't asset based, and there was a problem with being able to manage maybe multiple assets on a contract. And we're talking .com era, right, 1998, and he saw an opportunity to create a browser based system. And a lot of folks back then were saying that's never going to happen. How can you create a back office servicing system on the web, through a browser, Internet Explorer, whatever it even was back in 1998. And, he decided he was going to do it. He was going to make it asset based, and he did it. And, the company started growing. So, he offered initially a servicing accounting system, and not an origination piece, but it was asset based and it was browser based. And then right around the time that I joined, we decided we were going to go, end to end, and we were going to have one code base for origination, servicing, accounting, remarketing, fixed assets all together. And you weren't going to have two disparate systems, one on one technology, one on another technology. And again, there were doubters, I think, and critics that said you'll never be able to do it. And again, he jumped that hurdle, and we offered an end to end, and then we extended it further to become a true platform based company. So what we mean by platform is, we're not just an amalgamation of products. We'll take a product for servicing, a portal product, maybe this other product for testing. A platform is built under the same technology framework, and it aims to bring all users in an environment together. So traditionally in our industry, right, companies like us would go out and just target users of software for internal accountants, credit users, maybe operations users or collectors. And our philosophy is there's a lot more users that can be leveraging the platform. And that includes external users to the financial services company, but it also includes some other users that were kind of cut out from that product or the application, which were IT users and testers or BAs. So we decided, hey, we want to create the factory where the car is built, and we want to license that. So similar to a Force.com with a Salesforce, right? Salesforce is the CRM, but Force.com is the platform that Salesforce is built off of. Well, we did the same thing with our Odessa build, and we said, we're going to turn around, we're going to use that internally, and we're going to license it to our customers so that they can extend, they can build their own apps, but they're not creating bolt-ons to the system that are under different technology frameworks. You need different hardware maybe to run those. You need different skill sets. It makes things more efficient from an infrastructure standpoint, and it gives flexibility. So we're a Microsoft based shop. So SQL servers are backend .NET, and our customer base is global asset and auto finance companies globally, and we play among the biggest players out there, the enterprise sides, the biggest captives, the biggest banks in the world. We hit that middle market tier. If you're looking at the Monitor 100 here in the US, you'd say somewhere between 50 and 100 would be kind of that middle tier. And then we also play down in what I'll call like an SMB, where portfolio sizes might be 50 million to 100 million. And then we have customers across the globe. So customer base extends almost every continent, I would say right now. Obviously, our biggest presence is in North America with the US and Canada, but we have customers all the way from Australia to India, to the Middle East, Bahrain, South Africa, the UK, Mexico, and obviously North America.
So what does that do from being the solutions architect? You're pretty much boots on the ground with a lot of these demos.
Yeah.
How has these last year plus been for that?
Yeah. So, if we're talking kind of on that sales side, right, where I get involved in that sales support, you're right. It has been a challenge, because I will tell you, I made my first trip last week since the pandemic started. I just flew down to Atlanta for a partner meeting for a night, and it was great to get out. It was, I hadn't been on a plane and ever, and I was edging to get on a plane and go see some folks, and I'm looking forward to the conference and seeing you later this month down in San Antonio. But the challenge was adjusting to selling the platform without seeing someone face to face, having a cup of coffee, going out to lunch with them and discussing stuff that maybe I just demoed, or you walk during a break to the water cooler and somebody is asking a question about something you just demonstrated to them. You know, it's a challenge not having that through a Teams, a Zoom, whatever your mechanism is, Cisco WebEx. And I have my favorite now is Teams, is the one I use all the time. But you have to be adaptable to, you know, doing it through these video settings. And sometimes it's interesting because, you know, when you're having a presentation or a meeting, the other side, you might have 40 people there that might not want to be on camera for one reason or the other, but you're presenting the system and the platform. You want to be on camera. I don't want them to get distracted by looking at my mugshot, but you know, I want them to see the platform. So we have to work to the audience, I think. Yeah, so it's been a bit of a challenge, but hey, everybody else has the same challenge. So it's not like we were at a competitive disadvantage. We utilized actually, you know, several other methods to make this more efficient, like through chat and certain questions. So there were certain things we picked up along the way. And look, we saved a lot on travel time. I will tell you, as you said, globally, I traveled a lot internationally. My Friday the 13th, March 13th of last year was my last flight. I was on the way back from South Africa. That's a long flight. It takes time. And to hop on a Zoom meeting with someone and do a demo, I don't lose all that travel time. So there is a benefit.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, you know, because obviously during the pandemic, I was still on that software sales side, and it's like, well, how is this going to work? You have someone who's interested. You need to get in front of them. Yeah. Like, you go and make your mark so they can understand everything. And now it's just kind of like, I'm going to just say it. We're coming out of this. Whatever, people yell at me or whatever, but it's like, okay, Madhu, what is my travel budget? Yeah. If someone's interested, I don't think we're just going to jump on planes anymore just because someone's interested. I think it's a lot more, you know, of this, and then you go there to shake hands, almost formalize a deal at that point in time.
Yeah, I think now, you know, our philosophy is it does depend on the other side. You know, we have a pretty, you know, open policy around, hey, are you comfortable traveling? It ultimately, you know, comes down to me. Am I comfortable traveling at the end of the day? Which I individually, personally am. But, you know, big organizations have policies that, hey, visitors aren't allowed in the building. We could always ask to do it, but the shift hasn't happened yet that I'm seeing. I'm starting to see some more engagement. Of course, my first trip last week to a partner site is an example of things opening up, and the conference, you know, coming up is great. I think maybe we'll see, as you're saying, after folks, you know, go to that conference, maybe we'll see some opportunities for on-site visits from you know, a sales perspective. I'm more than excited to get back out there. Maybe not those trips to the Philippines and Australia as much, but hey, gotta do it.
Yeah, maybe one or two a year, just to kind of.
Yeah, not every month international. So
that wife is like, when are you going to be gone for?
Exactly. Exactly. Unless, you know, you can meet halfway in Paris. Other than that, you know.
There you go. So from I guess from an installation perspective, you know, because when I was on the software side, a lot of the grinding, a lot of the war, the best battle setting in a system happens when people are face to face in a room, just hammering things out.
Yep.
How has that process impacted you guys from your installs?
Yeah, so
if it has at all.
Yeah, there's been a huge adjustment on the implementation delivery side to do this, because, you know, as soon as the travel ban went into place, it was pretty much everywhere back in March of last year, and we had a lot of in-flight projects going on. And, you know, hey, this is not going to impact our timeline, and, you know, we have to make this work. And, you know, Zoom and Teams were huge on it. I don't play directly now, although I did. Obviously, back in, you know, 2010 to like 2012, I was doing implementations and I was on site, you know, whether it be in New York or Minneapolis or California, wherever it was. And I get it. I totally get it, because it's just like sales. There's certain things when there's an issue on a project that you hammer out in a face-to-face setting, which is a little more difficult over a Zoom meeting. And, you know, I will say they pick up efficiency by not losing that travel time. So they have that going for them. But our goal was not to let any project timelines slip because of the travel ban. And we worked with our customers from a partnership standpoint to make sure we were being as efficient as possible. If there's other project things that are coming up that required, scope increase and the like, we weren't going to say, hey, we can't be on site, so add 3 months to the project. That just wasn't going to happen. And, the going remote from a delivery standpoint, I got to say the infrastructure team internally at Odessa did a really good job of making sure folks were comfortable and efficient working from home, that they had everything they needed to do without being on site. So, if they needed some technology, they needed some office furniture, whatever it would be, Odessa was right there for them, making sure, hey, we're going to make this work. And, to be honest, we're still, we're voluntary back to the office. So I've been in the office. I live very close to our office here in Center City, Philadelphia, so I can walk down there. So I've been in there a number of times, but I got to say, I've gotten so used to working from my home office that it's become such a routine that I almost feel like I'm being a little inefficient if I go in the office when there's not a lot of people in it.
Well, not only that though, it's like I find myself and I've been working from home for the last, 11 years anyways.
Yeah.
I'm used to it, but what I've found now, and I think what a lot of people are finding, is that I'm going to say 7 to 7 with a 2-hour commute potentially on either side is now like maybe you have some breaks during the day, but you're still working at like 8 o'clock 9 o'clock at night because,
folks have gotten it. No, it's been really beneficial to us. We're a global organization. We have a big presence in Bangalore. And I think what's really happened is we've seen a lot more interaction with the Bangalore teams in the morning, just because people can take calls earlier, knowing they don't have to get on that train or get in the car and get into Center City, Philadelphia to the office. So they can schedule earlier meetings with them. And, I have had many conversations with folks, and they feel like they're closer with, maybe folks in the India office than they were, pre-pandemic because of that commute time that they were losing.
Well, not only that though, but I'm going to just throw this out there, but I'm assuming, like me, I never really turned on my camera pre-pandemic because the last thing I'm going to do is like, come on, like just leave me alone. So now that you can interact face to face, see people's expressions and everything else, it just kind of makes you a bit more cohesive.
Absolutely agree. I think it wasn't a struggle. It was like we had to use kind of more of a top-down approach, I think, to get employees to start turning on their camera. So in internal meetings, even if there were 20 people on a call, I might be the only one on there. But after like 3 or 4, you start seeing more and more people putting their cameras on, right? They feel like, hey, I should put my camera on. And, he's putting his camera on. It wasn't a forced thing. It was like, look, this is good to talk face to face with folks. And I was always face to face with my team. I traveled to India pre-pandemic 3-4 times a year because I always had to meet with them face to face. But now I do it through the camera, and it works well in lieu of not being able to be actually on site with them.
No, I like that top-down approach. Management sets the example, then everyone else gets it. I just joke with people when I set up Zoom meetings, and I'm like, look, don't make me like stare at myself while we're talking.
Well, that's the thing I was saying. When I do demos, that's the only thing. If there's 40 people on there, and they're all not on camera, and I want to present and be on camera, it's like, oh man, this kind of stinks. But don't look at me. Look at the system. If you ask a question, you can look at me and I'll respond that way. But
that's great. So I guess just what do you think from a technology perspective? I mean, it's been 17 years. What do you kind of see the future of? I mean, the platform. I completely agree with that. Where do you see, I guess, lease accounting software in 5 to 10 years, Jeff?
Yeah, I think we're in the. I see a number of areas. We're in a big shift, obviously, to cloud. Obviously, there's a lot of buzzwords out there. I'm going to stick to a few that are actually in play in the next 5 to 10 years. Some are going to be beyond 10 years, and I don't even want to go to those yet. So I'll start with cloud, and we've seen the shift. Obviously, you got to be able to deploy on the cloud and offer it as a SaaS offering. There's no question about it. And that's been accelerated by pandemic. No question. People don't want to have to deal with infrastructure, get people in to, maintain servers from an IT standpoint, and the cost savings are there. And the market has shifted. So we've made a shift, and we had started our cloud shift 3-4 years ago. So, our deployments, we're seeing so many more deployments on cloud versus on-prem. And we've gotten, there's certain places in the world from a data standpoint that the data has to reside somewhere. And we thought 3-4 years ago, oh, how is this going to be possible? And now it's very easy if you have a partnership with Azure like we do to set up the data locally, on the cloud in that particular country and do the deployment there, and they could still be on the cloud. I think 4 years ago, we were a little worried about that. Well, how are we going to do this on the cloud when, you got a customer in Bulgaria that says you got to have this data in the country, right?
Well, and also I think what these bigger financial institutions are seeing is they were like, that was always the roadblock, right? We're a bank.
Yeah.
It's in there. It's okay. Well, where's your, where's your Jack Henry system? Oh, that's in the cloud. Nah, like you start to break down those barriers naturally because more and more software is going cloud native.
Banks are doing it too, and that's those are the last, right? We have independents were the first, very simple. Then we got into the captives. I saw the shift to the captives, and the banks are now doing it. So we have contracts with banks that the deployments are fully on our Azure cloud, and I'm talking U.S. banks that are big size banks. So they've made that shift. It took a while to get there, and maybe that was pushed a little bit through the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, it was slow, but once we got into pandemic, it was like, I want the cloud offering, and I don't want to have it on-prem. Yeah, so that's one. Another one, this one's obvious, but and especially pandemic has been, e-signature and less docs. Everything's got to be digital. So you better have, e-signature capabilities if you're partnering with someone like an Adobe or a DocuSign. I mean, nobody wants to go back. I mean, you go to some of these leasing companies that have been around for forever. I mean, their offices, 75% of their offices are cabinets with lease agreement documents and certificate of acceptances from, paper. All that's starting to be digitized, and, the passing of paper can all be stored, right, from an e-signature standpoint and a digital storage.
I really hope so, because like pre-pandemic, walking around an office and you're seeing some of these high volume, micro, small ticket shops with all these folders all over the place. You're like, really?
So and it's so inefficient. It's so inefficient. DocuSign and Adobe, any e-signature tools, think about it. I mean, that's delivered instantaneously. You get the docs generated, they're passed in a hierarchy to whoever has to sign them. And it's fluid. I've used it a number of times for contracts that I've been on, and I really love e-signature. It's secure, and it's there. So you better have e-signature. Another thing, as we're seeing, and this has kind of been buzz. I think it's been talked about, but we actually see it, and we have an offering for it, which is pay-per-use, and all assets. So we're talking about assets here, and I could talk about vehicles. Vehicles always had mileage and kilometers tied to them ever since leases were offered for residual value. But the shift to the equipment side, everything now, these manufacturers are putting a meter on every single type of asset. I don't care what asset it is anymore. It's not just copiers. Well, you remember the days in copiers where, oh, your number of black and white copies, we're going to charge you if you use this minimum. And then if you go over, right, Canon's one of our customers that does that. But the shift in the trend has been to construction equipment, medical equipment obviously came a little earlier, but scans, right? MRIs.
I heard that like 10 years ago, the CPB, charge per procedure.
Yep.
I mean, that's
absolutely. X-ray equipment. GE Healthcare is one of our customers, and that's another one from a medical pay-per-use standpoint. And then we shift to IT equipment. Or cloud storage and true pay-per-use. I've seen contracts now where there's no minimum. Okay, it's just based on the amount of terabytes you're going to use on the cloud. And you have what gets interesting on that arrangement is you have an embedded lease. It's not a lease to the customer, to the end customer, because there's no minimum. So systematically, it's challenging to certain systems to be able to have kind of an embedded lease and asset on there, but recognize the revenue that's associated with that pay-per-use contract that's coming in. So being able to do that stuff at an asset level and service it and account for it is definitely something that if you're going to play in this industry as an asset finance software provider, you have to have. No, there's no question about it. Heading 5-10 years from now, it's there now. I get demands from it every day.
Well, and plus it's the end consumer too. I mean, if you're not using it, then why pay for it? Go figure.
Exactly, and it's, you know, there's a shift, right? Millennials don't want to own. You know, as they come through their careers, so they're shifting to, hey, it's more subscription, everything's subscription, and I only want to pay for what I use. I don't want to own. So all the big financial services companies are having offerings for that now. They have to get away in some cases from financial leasing, and they have to deal with this shift to, I only want to pay for what I use, and battle out, you know, that's going against the forces of, you know, traditional capital financing, which is, hey, you know, essentially you own the asset at the end of the contract. But now people have to think about their remarketing efforts, companies that, you know, that are leasing out the equipment, because they're going to have a whole slew of assets that might be coming back, and they might have to partner for remarketing those if they're handling these pay-per-use type contracts that they're offering. And then finally, I think, you know, I'm going to talk about self-service. And when I say self-service, and let me say like self-service and agility, I mean that from like two aspects within our market space. One is on our customer side, the actual leasing financial services firm, right? They don't want to be handcuffed into not being able to change their system, right? Things change. Yeah, granted, there's going to be regulatory changes that we have to make. We're contractually obligated to do that, like ASC 842, right? Compliance, GDPR. We're seeing it in the US for California with the big consumer protection stuff going on, and it's going to follow in all the states. That stuff's a given. I'm talking about general business environment changes. The organization changes, and if you're handcuffed by your technology and not able to make those changes from an agile standpoint, you know, historically you've had to go to your vendor and say, hey, look, can you make this change for me? Yeah, talk to me in 3 months, vendors would say.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So our philosophy, and I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is look, if you have the capacity to do it, we're going to give you the tools to do that change. We'll do it for you. We will make any changes that you need from an ongoing business standpoint, but you don't have to come to us. You can make those changes in self-serve through Odessa Build, because, you know, we're giving you the factory that's churning out the stuff and the feature sets that's within our platform. So if you so choose to do that, you can do that. And that's given them some agility to move quickly with, you know, resources that there's so many people out there that know .NET and they're not on old technology. We're staying up to date on the latest technology, and it's easy to find someone who can utilize something like an Odessa Build. And then also on the partner side and the customer side of our customers, right? So we obviously target the financial services firm, but they have customers. They have dealers that bring them deals. They have customers that are leasing or lending from or borrowing from them, and they need to be able to self-serve. So we were one of the first in the industry to have portals out there, and now there's a shift to mobility self-service. So again, it's kind of a millennial thing, right? Millennials use their tablets, their phones. We do too, but you know, I'm not a millennial, but you know, down the road, they want to be able to do everything from a tablet or a phone. If I'm doing a new deal, I'm a dealer and you're financing my deal, I should be able to put a deal on my phone and quote the deal for an FMV lease and then submit a credit app through that. And you should be able to give me a decision back to my phone, and I should be able to generate the docs from the phone and have them go through an Adobe e-sign right to the customer and get that deal done. And I can get funded that day on a deal. So there is a tremendous shift to this self-service capabilities, not only within the financial services firm, but also for their partners in the business cycle. And it all goes back to that platform idea and philosophy that we have.
Oh, Very, you're kind of spot on with all that stuff, Jeff. So thank you for that. Now, I ask people when they come on here, sorry to kind of put you on the spot, but a little fun fact about yourself, if you don't mind sharing. Just keep in mind it is, going to be on the internet. So,
hey, and I had watched some Fireside chats, Jesse. So you got me hooked on some of them, and I saw that theme in there, so I kind of knew you were gonna ask this, and I thought, should I go the embarrassing route or should I go, maybe a more standard fun fact? And I said, look, all right, I'll go with the more standard one. And I'm a guy who likes to travel. I travel a lot, so I've been to 30 different countries in the world, and I'm trying to. I don't know if there's 180 in the world, but my goal is to keep increasing that and getting to as many countries as I can. And when I do travel, I always try to give myself some time to expand into something and see something or experience something that I hadn't done the previous time, or get into another country. If I'm in continental Europe and I can slip over into another country that I haven't been in. So travel is definitely a passion of mine, and I like living or when I visit, I like visiting in an Airbnb type environment. That's not to say I don't like nice hotels, but I do like Airbnb, and going to a market and cooking the local food and the like. It's just it kind of ingrains you in the environment that you're in.
So now, is it Airbnb? I'm sorry, my dog wants to make an appearance on it. So, is it Airbnb in the States or just when you're traveling abroad?
So I generally actually don't do Airbnb in the States. Okay. It's when I travel abroad, and I look to do them generally in cities, but I've done some country Airbnbs in Italy. And
I wondered how adventurous you are, and it's like you stay in a hostel, and all of a sudden you're sharing a toilet with like 8 people.
No, so back in 1998, I studied in Australia for 6 months, and I didn't have any income. So when I traveled around Australia, I was definitely in a hostel back then. But now, yes, I don't do private rooms. I do I think it's called entire place instead of the optional.
Sorry, I just picture like, wait, what? No.
Yeah, and you can find some nice Airbnbs and some nice spaces, and it's great to have a kitchen. I mean, running into a market, picking up something from a local market like in Athens, and making a Greek salad and some souvlaki in the kitchen is like no other.
Fantastic. So in closing here, Jeff, of the different lease accounting platforms out there, why Odessa?
Yeah, I think I'll use that term platform because we are a true platform. I think from a functionality standpoint, if you look at the functionality really deeply down from everything we offer, from origination through to servicing, asset management, data capabilities, portals, the functionality exceeds anything else out there from an asset finance standpoint in the market. Then you look at the technology, the framework that we have with the build component and the ecosystem is unlike anything else in our industry, specifically in asset finance. And then just our organization. I mean, this is the only thing we focus on is asset finance. We're not part of another division of a software company that makes ERP solutions or the like. We specialize in leasing. That's what we live and breathe each day, day in and day out. And it's those 3 components that really give us an advantage, and why we've grown so much over the past 23 years that we've been in business, and we've been able to expand globally with the platform.
No, and thank you for that, Jeff, and greatly appreciate your time today. And by the time this airs, that will be 1 week closer to the ELFA annual. So I look forward.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to catching up with you in a face-to-face environment down in San Antonio. And thanks again for having me, Jesse. It was fun.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thank you.